What's the time, Mr. Wolf? What's the time? 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 Say 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I say we're schooling after dinner. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You with 4 hours. What's the time, Mr. Wolf? What's the time? 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 So let me sit a long leg, scrolling up to the ceiling. Sun don't shine, I said the sun don't shine, well and the sun don't shine at all. Mama, Papa said I should go to school, but I don't know what for. Now that I've grown up and seen the world, and what is love? What's the time, Mr. Wolf? What's the time? 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 So we sit at a long late, scrolling up to the ceiling. Has anyone seen the world in its state? It's never been this way before. Is anyone who's got the eyes of love in another way? Is anyone who's got the story? Anyone who's got that story? What's the time, Mr. Wolf? What's the time? 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 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock.
Aloha and welcome to the 15th annual Ohana is Forever conference. My name is Melissa Mayo and I am the Pono Process Navigator at Epic Ohana, as well as the High Hopes Board President in East Hawaii. We'd like to thank you all for joining us today. It is truly amazing that the Ohana is Forever conference is celebrating its 15th year. This is also our second year on a virtual platform. Our theme this year is Holomua, keep moving forward. We have all endured so much over the last year, and I've been inspired by the dedication, commitment, and creativity of the hard work of young people, adult professionals, and community partners, and their efforts to Holomua together to support our young people affected by foster care during the pandemic and caring for one another. We hope you're all inspired to keep moving forward together with unity and hope. I'd like to share some conference housekeeping items at this time. If you registered for this event, you should have received an email with the conference agenda. This event ends at 12:30 p.m., so please take care of yourself, eat, get a quick drink of water, and take a quick break if you need to throughout the program. The webinar portions of our conference will be recorded and posted at a date for viewing. The webinar portions of our conference will also be able to be viewed later. If you have any questions, comments, technical, or other issues during the conference, please submit a comment in the chat and someone will be there to assist you. We have an incredible lineup today, and before we begin with our keynote speaker, we'd like to share a few words of welcome from the Honorable Jesse Hall, First Circuit Family Court Judge, and Eladine Olival, Branch Administrator of Child Welfare Services, Department of Human Services.
Welcome to the Ohana is Forever conference. This year celebrating its 15th anniversary, focusing on those youth that have been touched by the foster care system. I'm Jessie Hall, Juvenile Judge in the Family Court of the First Circuit on the island of Oahu. As you've heard, this year's theme is Holomua, moving forward despite adversities. After the year we've been through with COVID, I think we can all agree that there have been many adversities that we have had to work through, and now we must find a way to work together to move past. We all have had to learn how to attend classes, meetings, and even court online, and getting used to seeing everyone trapped in little boxes on a screen. If in 2019 someone had said that visitations and meetings would occur on an online meeting platform, well, first, we would have thought that they were crazy. But then we would think that it's just not possible. Out of pure necessity, we have managed to make the impossible possible. Despite numerous hurdles and social distancing, the Family Corps has continued to find ways to best support our youth. Although virtual, Teen Day has continued to be a success. Thanks to federal funding, our youth participating in Imuakako were permitted to participate past their 21st birthdays through the end of September 2021. Despite youth not coming to court during COVID, our youth in-court facilitator continued to assist in arranging programs for youth and assisting youth in obtaining their vital documents. And the judges have been able to keep in contact with youth via virtual conferences. We at Family Court are always trying to come up with ideas on how we can help the youth that we touch. We're striving to make new partnerships with community organizations so that we have a wider variety of services for our youth. We're also looking at systems and technologies discovered due to COVID and keeping the best of them even after social distancing has ended. Thank you to everyone that has worked so hard to put this program together. A lot of resources and information have been gathered in one place for all of our youth participating today. I encourage everyone to take advantage of as many resources as you can. I also encourage our adult supporters participating today to learn about these resources so you can share the information with all of the youth that you assist that could not attend. I want to welcome everyone, enjoy our speakers and some great music, and have a wonderful day.
Aloha kakahiaka. On behalf of Child Welfare Services, I too would like to welcome you to this year's 2021 Ohana is Forever. The theme, Holomua, moving forward together, is such a great theme that demonstrates our commitment to this great work. Just a year ago, we were faced with a pandemic. We did not let that stop us. We continued to engage and collaborate with each other, which showed our commitment to this great work. I would like to thank all those that made this event possible, from those that planned and worked behind the scenes. I too would like to thank our young people. You are an important part of our team. We will continue to work to improve the services of those that enter into our child welfare system. I hope that you all enjoy this year's Ohana is Forever, and we look forward to the day when we are able to do this in person. Ahui ho, malama pono.
Mahalo for those remarks. At this time, I am honored and so excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Sixto Cancel. Sixto will be joining us live and has generously offered to answer a few questions at the end of his presentation. So please, if you have any questions, place them in the Q&A feature during his talk. Sixto grew up and aged out of the child welfare system. His lived experience has powered a passion to transform the child welfare system so that every person has the conditions to heal, develop, and thrive. Sixto believes that centering the lived experiences of people whose lives touched by the system, foster youth, foster parents, caregivers, caseworkers, judges, and funders, allow us to co-design solutions that shift dynamics and that hold problems in place. Sixto was named a 2017 Forbes Top 30 Under 30 Social Entrepreneur and serves on the 2021 Forbes Under 30 Lister Board. recognized by the White House as a champion of change and a millennial maker by BET, and as one of the top 24 changemakers in the government under 24 in the country by the Campaign for Presidential Youth Council and Sparks Action. Sixto has served as CEO of Think of Us since 2017. He has also played a key role in the work of extending foster care and permanency for older youth as a young fellow at the Jim Casey Youth Opportunities Initiative. Sixto is an Ashoka Fellow, Clinton Global Initiative University alumni, and Fast Forward alum. Sixto and his team at Think of Us are committed to total transformation of the child welfare system in the United States. Aloha and welcome, Sixto.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for that introduction. And let me just tell you all, I'm just so excited to be with you all, because I don't know how much you know, but you all are such trailblazers. And so many times when I'm in other states, I'm pointing to Hawaii and how you continuously push stuff there. So today I want to talk to you a little bit more, and I'm going to focus my keynote on what I'm calling the hidden revolution. I think that there has been so much going on with the pandemic, and we've seen so much of the need, but there has been so much that people with lived experience has contributed to this and contributed to the reform. And so I thought that today I would take you through a journey, introduce myself, introduce a little bit about what we do at Think of Us, the organization that I lead, and also some of the things that we're seeing in the ecosystem that has centered lived experience, not just in the way of saying, let me share your story, but to be able to actually co-design and share power and create new type of interventions and innovations. And so that's what I was thinking today, and I want to let you know I'm paying attention to the chat. Thanks for all the love that folks are putting in there. As we go through this, feel free to go ahead and ask a question, put stuff in there. I like to go ahead and kind of be a little bit more interactive, and I'm such a show and tell person, so I'm going to be switching from screens, trying to give people really hands-on kind of views of the things that I'm talking about. So with that being said, I would love just to kick off with the first question to you all, which is to say, what is one of your most favorite breakfast foods that you would go ahead and cook for anyone who's visiting you from out of town? And you can just go ahead and put that in the chat. And this is just a little warm-up activity. And I will go ahead and start to bring up our presentations, but it's funny because I see a lot of donut, a lot of jelly rolls, some pancakes, some Portuguese sausage. Oh, wow. You all are, whoever said coffee, I have deep appreciation because I can't start my day without a good cup of coffee. And thanks for those who are saying amen. Cereal, because someone said they don't bake. Okay, eggs and spam. Yes, I will come over for that. And we're seeing fried rice and egg. That is something I actually used to have when I was a child. So yes, I'll come over for that. Anybody who said French toast, I will be there. Okay, so now I know that you are all here present. So with that being said, I'm going to share a little bit about my screen. And again, feel free to go ahead and put stuff in the chat. But I wanted just to start off by kind of sharing a little bit about myself. So I myself grew up in foster care, entered at 11 months, was adopted at the age of 9, and it was a pretty abusive adoption. So I found myself couch surfing by 13, and then ended up actually aging out of the foster care system in Connecticut. So that's a little bit about myself there. And then I got really passionate about advocacy, right? And one of the things I got passionate about was about having some voice and choice. And at the time, it was very difficult to kind of really have voice and choice. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe we should have an app that would allow young people to go ahead and be able to identify what are some of their goals, what are some of the things that they are that we as young people are going through, and how can we lift those up? And so we went on this journey, and that journey was to build this platform where we tested the idea of young people not only being able to kind of sign into a platform and being able to go ahead and identify their goals to the paid people in their life, but how do you actually engage some of the unpaid people in your life? And this was the foundation of like how we learned how to actually center lived experience. Because when you're building software, everything is so much about what does the user want? How many users did you talk to? And so this platform was the genesis of Think of Us, which basically was if you would like to create a goal from scratch or look at some suggested goals, look at one of the domains, identify a goal that you believe you want to have on your case plan and your independent living plan, add that goal, and then be able to go ahead and add the people in your life, right, to it. And then collaborate with those folks on that specific goal. So this is where we started, and we learned so much about like what worked and what didn't work. And we started to evolve because what we've realized from this is that our tech abilities, our data abilities, kind of put us in a place where we started to say, oh, what we really are is this laboratory for child welfare, right? This whole idea of how is it that we run towards the hardest problems and try to tinker on them and solve them. And so as we were doing the app, we were like, oh, we're just not like a software company. And so this is where we landed on. We're an R&D lab, we restructured, and really what we're trying to do is systems change. And we believe there are 6 conditions that hold systems change, a systemic problem in place. There's the mental model, so how we're thinking about it. There's the power dynamic that comes from the way that we're thinking about it, and it affects the way that we have relationships or connections. And then those things tend to go ahead and have policies and practices and money that keep that problem in place. So when I think about my time in care, there was one worker, right, who was kind of framing my life before the courts, framing my life before other paid professionals, and that power dynamic was always a tension between us because I wanted to go to a 4-year college. My worker was like, based on your grades, based on the things that you have going on, I think you should do community college. And it really affected the way that I had a relationship with all the people in the system. And the policy was that my worker got to make those calls, right? And in practice, that's what she was trying to do. And then it affected the tuition that the state would actually give me. And so this is an example of how, that's just one example how you can use the 6 conditions that hold a systemic problem in place to understand a problem. And so being able to you can tackle policy and practice and the way money flows. But some of the deepest transformational changes when you actually change a whole group of folks' way of thinking about it. Imagine if we just believe that young people are capable of making these decisions with folks, and that you had just as much of a right to say, I want to go to community college or full-time college, right? And so we began to really focus on this piece here. And the 2 areas that we've been focusing is immediately like our response to the pandemic, and then what does long-term recovery look like? And I don't want to bore you too much, but that has been a bit of national outreach. That has been a bit of how do we connect young people and states together and resources. And then our long term is like, how do we lay the foundation for very, very much innovative infrastructure so that it can hold that innovation there. And also centering lived experience and what do these new type of models look like. So being a little laboratory, we get to kind of help spark things, support things, or co-drive things. So our goal is not to be like the largest life skills program. Our goal is to kind of test, well, how can we do a life skill program so differently, and then give it away to other folks to go ahead and iterate. And so just so that folks kind of get an idea, we're a team of 30. A couple 15 months ago, we were like a team of 3 as we were restructuring. And then under this restructure, we're now like 30 people with a series of projects that I'm very excited to tell you a little bit about. But I want to start with what happened during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, it was March 13 when the country went into a national state of emergency. And this was the moment where I think that people were expecting the federal government to go ahead and give us guidance. People were expecting that we would have like this emergency plan enacted at different state and local levels, but that these plans were one that consulted the people that it affected, right? And the pandemic affected, everyone in the country, not just young people in foster care. But when we were looking at who was leading in foster care, there was a gap. And that gap was, we didn't have that federal guidance, right? And so what ended up happening is that young people failed that. One of the first things we saw was the command center that was stood up. So the command center, and I'll show you what it is. The command center ended up being this place where 8 young people with lived experience started to publish different playbooks. And these playbooks were for either false youth or for agencies. So in the beginning of the pandemic, you can imagine there was a lot of questions about what do you do around a whole bunch of series of things. And some of them had to do with very big problems, like how do you stop young people from aging out? Some of them were very practical, like how do you host a virtual town hall, right? And the idea here was to go ahead and young people to create the young people who were on this project created playbooks that went ahead and just kind of gave the 101, right? And what was so important about this was that people were able to understand what was going on in one state or one jurisdiction, and then they would bring it to other states and jurisdictions who were in the process of trying to figure it out, and all the many different ways that that was happening. So not advocating for one way to do it, but but bringing people closer to understanding that there were many different forms of how folks were doing that. And then what were those copy and paste kind of letters to the governor, the policy and so forth, so that people can run with it. I'm so proud of this group of folks because they were able to publish over 26 different guidances during the pandemic's first couple of months, compared to like the Center of States, which is the official people who were supposed to do it, and they had like 8. And so like young people were literally going across the country, figuring out what was happening in different places, producing playbooks together, and then putting that back out into the world. And that ended up being one of the things that helped people extend foster care and stop the ban on aging out youth before the federal, before Congress passed the national legislation. So some of the things that and the reason I'm lifting this up is because I think, one of the things I learned on my journey is that it was all about being such a hardcore advocate. And the only way I knew how to be an advocate was to point out the things that weren't working. But here I started to learn more and more about how do you actually turn around and really focus on co-solution and co-creating. And co-solution here was actually not us coming up with solutions as lived experience experts. It was finding young people who were experiencing other solutions at the ground level, and whatever was working, lifting those up so that other states can do it. And so that's one of the stuff that was there. And so we got a couple questions so far here. We got a question around like, will the PowerPoint be available? Yes. And then Daniel asked here, is there any data on the successful implementation of these playbooks? Some will have more information around them than others. So like, for example, on this playbook, if you look at the bottom of it, and I'll drop this link into the chat here. If you look at the bottom of it, you'll start to see that you'll see the District of Columbia's legislation. Okay, this is why they say you never demo stuff live, because the one time you click on something, it's a broken link. So I have to fix that. But you'll see kind of where some of these results were at, right? South Carolina, Connecticut, Rhode Island, California, Illinois. Illinois was the first one to do this. So you can see some of the results there. And some of them will have like not a lot of results, like how many states use Title IV-B money to buy laptops. I can't tell you that piece there until 18 months when the states actually report their funding up. Okay. So this is just one thing that happened. And so like, as a result of that, we saw so many folks actually be able to get some of their needs met, right? The other thing I just wanted to share is that we had town halls, but the most important piece of the town halls that we had nothing to do with us. It had everything to do with young people and lived experience experts who literally around the country started having their own version. And what I loved is that all of their versions were 10 times better than the version we had created. Like looking at the town halls at the state level, it was just like, wow, folks were 10 times more creative than we were. But that is so powerful in terms of iteration. And one of the things that I know is that Patty and folks here, you all were having your own town halls. And so like those were very important and led to a lot of folks understanding needs, led to a lot of folks getting what they needed. So really, when I think about what's this revolution is that 20, 30 years ago, right, before Fostering Connections in 2008, where the lived experience movement was, people with lived experience in foster care advocating, there wasn't a network of folks who would just take it upon themselves to do things. And now we're living in an age where, there is a network of people with lived experience working at the state, local, and national level, and that you're borrowing and innovating and iterating on the things that you all are seeing. And that's very powerful. So those are kind of some of the things we start to see. And those playbooks and kind of understanding the resource navigation really led us to a different place where we start to understand, oh, wow, we need to do things a little differently for for navigating resources, because we started to hear from young people like 211 wasn't working as well as anymore, because a lot of people were going there. You would get off the call and there's like 11 resources coming here. So young people co-designed this with some caregivers, with some user experience designers. And what they designed was a new type of model that we're running in California called virtual support services. And this is the idea that, how might you all just have a personal assistant who literally will do your paperwork for you? Like, part of what goes on when you're trying to get a resource is that there's so much paperwork involved. And so how might you literally be able to understand what is the resource that you might want, right? Have a personal assistant actually listen to that with lived experience. And this person with lived experience has figured out how to get these things for themselves at one point without support. And then following up on that to book a quick 15-minute call and say, okay, I need you to do this paperwork and this paperwork and this paperwork. And it's not about someone telling you what they think is best for you. It's about literally that person just filling out the paperwork that you said you wanted them to do. So switching up that power dynamic, switching up the idea that you need to have, someone to say, this is what's best for you. And that you have one place where if you have a strong feeling about what you need and you're secure in that, how do you just do it? And then giving you two ways to do it. Do it on your own, or go ahead and have your personal assistant, give you a phone call, give you an email, or give you a text message, and then spend 15 minutes on the phone with them as they literally put their hands on keyboard and then do that thing for you. And part of what we were focused on is how do you make sure that you also have access to non-traditional interventions. So something like this, where Career Village has helped over 5 million students connect to a professional in their career, like the career that they want to be in, answer questions, be able to network. How do you actually have access to some of the top line stuff that people who are not involved in systems are getting, and making sure that we're front and center, but that they have adapted some of their practice to be able to understand the unique needs that we have as we go through it. All of this has been possible because young people co-designed the program, the model. The actual interface has gone through 3 iterations in the last 7 months. Then young people went and tested careervillage.org, or they tested another one of our partners called MindRight. And what they did was they provided them with insights around what needs to change in order to be able to serve folks who have foster care experience, right? And so like right now we have 300 young people who currently have a mental health coach through a text message app, right? Because they went through our site, got connected, and then said, this works. And this is over a mental health text message coach is literally being engaged on average for about 10 weeks with a 73% retention rate. And why is that? Why such great outcomes? Because young people have been at the center of giving them feedback, but not just giving feedback, but then co-creating how should the experience go. So right now, I kind of feel like the entire country's at this tipping point where we now know that we can't really move forward without lived experience being at the table. And folks are trying to figure out how to do that well, right? How is it that you hire lived experience to be that virtual assistant that turns around and not only says, let's 3-way call 211 together, but if 211 gives you a list of resources that digital assistant is doing the research based on the criteria you tell them to do it on, and then going ahead and following up with those resources and making sure all the paperwork is done, and then really being your assistant and keeping you up to date with it. That's the power dynamic, switching from earning help to being treated like a billionaire. And so this was just some of the quotes that we've gotten from young people and kin caregivers and informal caregivers. We're starting to see that folks feel heard, that folks feel like, it's efficient. And that same efficiency that we get from Amazon or we get from social media, that we get from other type of services, our young people and our caregivers deserve that too. And so the magic of all of this, there is nothing hugely complicated. There is nothing hugely special. We haven't added any of the AI stuff to it. All of this is just literally taking a stance and co-creating with the people that we're serving to say, how do you have A+111 customer service? And that's what people wanted, right? They're like, look, when stuff hits the fan, I don't want to do 7 hours of paperwork. And then it was like, you know what? That's true. Who wants to do 7 hours of paperwork? Right? And so this is the power of when we're able to speak up, but also come to the table to actually co-design and say, okay, we've identified the problem and we've learned how to do that very well in child welfare. But as alumni, we also, and as people in care, I think we have to push ourselves to the next level where we're saying, okay, what do I know about the world all the way around? And how might we literally be able to go ahead and co-design what the solution could look like? And so that's just one form. The other thing that I'm getting very excited about is that we see young people getting involved a lot more in research. We're about to, on the 21st, Wednesday, Thursday, we're about to release a whole report called Away from Home, and it's about young people's experiences in institutional placement, group home placements. And so when people have an agenda, they will go out and they will literally write their report and then find a couple young people to give quotes and on their report, and then they publish it. We kind of did the opposite. We went and talked to a bunch of young people and wrote a report about all the things that they told us. And so this is 150 pages of what are those experiences, and us getting to the understanding that all young people need family. And as long as group homes exist as a long-term placement option, that we're failing young people tremendously. And so we're putting out the position that we shouldn't have long-term group homes as a long-term placement just because a state might not have enough foster homes. And we saw very, very powerful stuff. And I just want to give a trigger warning as I share some of this, because this was very powerful content that young people shared with us. We're used to being interviewed about our experience, and we wanted to try something new. And so we put out a call to young people to submit a couple of different things. One of them were things that they have kept from when they were an object that they had currently in their possession that had reminded them from their time in congregate care. And if they felt comfortable, to send us a picture. And again, I'll give a trigger warning because some of the content can really hit home in a very strong way. So young people submitted things like this, right? Stuffed animals that they had. They submitted things like a blanket that they had gotten the moment that they had entered care in 2016 at 2 a.m. And were able to go ahead and be able to say, hey, this was so meaningful to me that someone actually went out of their way to give me something extra, right? We also had young people submit things like, the duffel bag that they had carried out throughout as being one constant thing that they had carried throughout their entire experience in foster care before aging out. So we had folks who really, gave us insight to what were some of the things that were so valuable to them. We asked young people to go ahead and submit an open mic night, right? How is it that you can go ahead, what's a piece that you would perform at open mic night? And young people put together some very, very powerful pieces, like what is normal? Is it a feeling, perhaps an emotion? Whatever it is, I will never know. Is it a prescription? What aisle is it at the grocery store? Is it something I can even afford? Wherever will I find it? What does it smell like? Can you touch it? Perhaps it tastes good, but how would I know if I found it? What is normal? These pieces, along with the 56 folks who decided to do an interview with us, turned around and we presented it in secret to 600 different child welfare directors and folks. And what we asked them to do once we presented to this, was to make a commitment. 7 state directors made a commitment to end the use of group home care, right? And they're making plans with the Annie Casey Foundation and Casey Family Programs to do that. And then a group, all overall, the 25 people, including those 7, either committed to reducing dramatically group home care, to not using group home care, or to learning how not to based on the first 2 groups. So the power that we're seeing right now and this revolution of young people and how we move forward into a new age is that we are now at the place where we're having so much influence on what's happening. And I'll share the last example here, which is the campaign that some of you might have been able to see, which is called Check for Us. Congress gave $400 million to states to provide pandemic relief. And in so many different states, the plan was just to increase programming. But when young people found out, they were like, oh, heck no. That money was made for pandemic relief to cut checks, and increase program, not all for that, and some other things. And so basically we thought to ourselves, well, what if we just went on a journey to let as many young people know and to submit their contact information so that they can be reconnected to the states, because states were saying, hey, we don't know where young people are at, right? States were saying, we don't know how to spend this money. And I would say Hawaii has been on the forefront of being one of the most innovative and ahead of the game. There's some states who have still not yet put their spending plans together. And there's a September 30th deadline. And we're working with 37 states directly. So we know the details of these states very intimately. And what's so special about this campaign is that we hired a creative agency, and when they asked us who was the point person to make the creative decisions and the final calls, we actually pointed to young people. We created a lived experience advisory board, hired a UX person, a user experience researcher, who literally at every stage of this campaign, from language to aesthetics, has been able to ask young people, what's working well, what's not working well. And as you can see the quotes of, young people who were both part of that advisory board, but also who were not part of this campaign that we just did A/B testing with. We literally just went out and tested this with folks. And so to date, what this campaign has resulted in is that we now have over 11,000, well, let me refresh. This is a live internal dashboard. So right now we have 11,362 young people across the entire country who have told us about, who have signed up for us to connect them with their states. And we can see where those different states, how many per those states have done that. And this has pressured states to actually get out and do the work. Now, the beautiful part about this is not only is the actual application literally designed by young people in partnership with people with lived experience. So you're not getting questions that we learned that there's certain things that are very triggering. So for example, asking who was your last social worker, and we never really understood that could be such a trigger, right? And so I'm just showing you kind of some of the questions here. So we learned quickly that this is one way to power really deeply with people with lived experiences, making sure that we were wording everything in a way that really supported them and saying, okay, here's how we can collect information. That's not me. Here's how we can collect information and be able to go ahead and do it in a way that's so respectful, right? And not so cumbersome, because we did have learning experience from our first time we tried to do this, that young people were like, it wasn't the greatest experience. So now here's how we have been able to do that. And being able to have an application that you can do in 2.5 minutes and then submit that and send that to the state, that has been a game changer for so many states, because now they feel like they can act and they have a little bit of information on what can they do. And just to give you even a little bit of a different screen here, we can literally tell what did young people request, around the different needs that they had per state. So this is some of the stuff that all has been created by people with lived experience. Lived experience is at the center of all of it. Most of our organization is. And so that's where I feel like the power of when you just allow folks to be creative and show, you can literally kind of find out what is possible here. And I'll show you one more map because you all are Hawaii, and I want to make sure you see your own things. So like even in Hawaii, we've had 111 young people share some requests with us. And we can see what were those around housing, what were those around work, what were those around food, what were those around health, and so forth. And so pretty proud of what young people have been able to do. And I think that where we're heading over the next 10 years is that the system is truly going to continue to experience these different proof points based on how young people are starting to iterate. Because more and more young people and people with lived experience who are older, who have foster care experience, are teaming up to actually create their own solutions to it and lead organizations and lead different projects. And so my encouragement to all of you is to say, this is such a profound moment where we get to design what's next in the world. And like we said, I fully encourage that you lean in all the way. And when you have those voices that says, well, what if we did it this way? Or what if we tried this? Like, do it. And there's no right way of doing one thing because it's so uncharted. And you never know what is the impact that can come from it. This is all of the stuff that has happened in the last year alone. And this is just from one person's perspective. Imagine all the stuff that I'm not seeing. Imagine all the stuff that we are not seeing. There is a movement that's bubbling up, and I'm just so proud of the young people in Hawaii because you all have been part of it by leading by example. When we're able to tell other states, well, originally you were one of the first to the table to start pushing money out on that Chafee campaign, and we're able to tell other states, well, Hawaii's doing it. You know, like they figured it out. And so it's so good to be able to point to things of that nature. So I want to open up for questions now. And I know there were some questions around sharing some of these links. I'll pop some of these links into the chat here. And then I will take it from there. So would love for folks to put that you can come off of mute, or you could put your questions in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sixto, for that inspiring presentation, just that valuable information. I do have a few questions that was actually sent in. What's your experience with really being a person who creates change? How does a young person go forward with wanting to become a part of that change?
I think one of the most important things that I've learned, and I'm still struggling with, to be honest, is you have to be collaborative. You know, I think when you've come from a place, well, I've come from a place where I haven't been heard a lot and it wasn't listened as I was growing up. And part of my unique experience coming while I was in foster care is that when I was experiencing abuse from my adopted mother, I was reporting it to the hotline, but it took 7 investigations before I was able to get back in. And the result of that in my life was that I always felt like I had to really make the point. And now learning that it's 10 times more powerful to be able to be in collaboration, and the idea doesn't need to be all of your idea. And it's the intersection of our ideas that make the innovation happen. And so I would say like that is number one. And it's still so tough. There are people who are, you're like, really? I really want to go ahead and like call you and not say nice things to you. Because that is what comes with collaboration.
Right. No, and thank you so much for that. You know, going along those same lines of kind of like of creating change and young people wanting to join in that the change making, what kind of words would you give to young people who are kind of trying to find their footing in creating change, like thinking about, you know, do they need to be on this big creative change, whether that's, you know, on a federal level or a policy level, or can young people really kind of start with smaller changes like in their community and their counties? Do you think you can share a little bit about that?
Yeah, the largest change is at the local level. So I think we have been taught it backwards. People are like, oh, you're national, so you're doing bigger change stuff. And actually it's the other way around. Local, state, then national. So local is the most powerful stuff because you can literally change way quicker things at your local level. State stuff then becomes one level up, right? But then it's a little bit slower. By the time you get in national level, you're really talking about a 3 to 4 or 5 year initiative to change one thing that may or may not happen. And so part of why we focus on like what you saw, like virtual support services, that's happening at the local and state level where you can literally have a tangible outcome. And then we're taking all the data of what young people and caregivers are asking for. And then we're going back to the state and saying, hey, state, look, you have too much of this resource contracted, too little of this resource contract, right? And so we're leveraging the data to actually right size how the state is spending its money. Like that's the goal. So for me, you can't do that state level work without knowing and doing the local level work. And you can't do the national level work without knowing the state level work.
Right. No, that was a good answer. Thank you for that. We do have one question in the Q&A. How have you learned to love or support yourself through life without family members, financially and emotionally? Just asking for young people in foster care.
Yeah, I think this one's a pretty hard one because I think this is an ongoing journey, right? Like I think that we collectively have. That's number one. But two, I've chosen some people to be family. So that's one. And I think the hard part of it is that sometimes you make choices, and if you haven't grown up in the absence of family in the way sometimes we have, sometimes other people may not understand the severity of like when we're choosing you, right? And what that looks like. But being brave to kind of love over and over and over, and know that it's actually part of the process where our relationships will change. Like part of life, whether we were in foster care or not, was that we would be close to people for a season. Sometimes we get a little bit more distance from them. Sometimes we get a lot more closer to them. And I think coming out of foster care, I thought to myself, oh, you find the magical people who then you're forever close to them. Because that's what we're kind of taught is like, where are your forever family? Where's your forever people? And now I'm starting to realize as I turn 30 next year, like this is much more about being able to live in the dynamic of how do you have people who are close to you at some points and sometimes not so close. And that is part of the process.
Right. No, thank you for that. Really about chosen family and kind of just being open to different seasons of having those people in your lives. Though, thank you for the answer. And just one more question. How do we continue to share the awareness of hardships that young people or people with lived experience face outside of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I think, our organization is committed to and what we're going to double down and we're going to be launching a Center for Lived Experience is that I think what we need to be doing is truly studying the experiences of of young people and those who are no longer in the young people category. We kind of stop at 23 or 26, right? And the reality is that these are lifelong experiences. And so I think number one is to continue to study the experiences so that we can then be positioned to start to understand how might we start to have solutions. I think the thing that we might lack as an ecosystem, that's not one organization, it's not one state, as an ecosystem, is that we have trained people to be able to point out what's wrong. But we have not gotten the training to say, how do you go through the formal human-centered design process or the formal process of leveraging data and interpreting it and synthesizing it and then being able to say, this is what could be potential solutions, because now we've studied the collective experiences of multiple folks and not just who we were able to choose to come to the roundtable discussion.
Thank you so much for answering that question. And thank you again, Sixto, for joining us today and for all that you do on behalf of our foster brothers and sisters throughout the country. So thank you, Sixto.
Well, I would say thank you all and thank you for your contribution. And what I would say is that one of the things that I feel like is very unique about Hawaii compared to a lot of the states that we live in is that you all have a powerful culture. And you all have a way of talking about love and bonding and relationships in a way that I don't believe the mainland has benefited from. And so what I look forward to is in all of these conversations around permanency and all of these conversations around how might we get more connected, that we start to look to Hawaii to really learn what has that looked like and what has been your insight, because from our perspective, I think of us, we see you so much ahead of so much of the different parts of the country.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you again for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure was mine. Appreciate you all.
Thank you. Okay, before we take a 5-minute break, here is what our next hour will look like. We'll be holding 2 separate workshops, one for current and former foster youth up to age 26, and one for our adult partners in the room. The adult partners will remain here in the webinar room for a presentation by Dr. Stephen Choi and Dr. Cheryl Andaya. And for our youth and young adults, a Zoom link will be placed into the chat box right now. So keep your eyes out for that link. Please use that to go to your Zoom workshop, and both will begin at 10:05 a.m. We will see you back here for more inspirational talks, entertainment, and prizes after our workshops.
Aloha, everyone. Aloha, are we almost ready to get started? Dr.
Yep.
Choi, Dr.
So after you introduce us, I'm going to
I
we're gonna stop
will.
the video, okay?
I will. I'll introduce you. Let me just, as a way of housekeeping, remind people that if you are a foster youth or a current foster youth, there's another breakout session for you. And please look in the chat, and there's a link that says youth, young adults. Please go ahead and click on that breakout session. It's not that we don't want you here, but I think the other session might be more fun. So please do click out, and then you'll have instructions to click back in. And for all the rest of you, welcome. And please help me welcome Dr. Choi and Dr. Andaya, and our discussion this afternoon, or this morning, excuse me, about how young people are affected by the pandemic. Such an important topic, and I'm very, very pleased to introduce them. I'm Laurie Tochiki, and I'm Executive Director of Epic Ohana. There's a fuller bio of our two speakers in the notes, and if you haven't received it, it's on our Epic Ohana website. But Dr. Andaya is a clinical psychologist who specializes in the area of child maltreatment. Her postdoctoral training was at Kapiolani Child Protection Center with Dr. Choi, and she received her specialized training and is now working as the manager of clinical services and training for KCPC. So thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Choi is a licensed clinical psychologist who's specialized in prevention, assessment, and treatment for more than 40 years. He is literally a pillar in our community and is one of those people that actually needs no introduction. And when you say that, you have to really mean it. He's the director of Family Strengthening Center at Family Programs Hawaii and an associate professor of professional psychology at Chaminade. So thank you both. There will be an opportunity to put some questions and answers in the buttons below, and we'll try to see how the discussion progresses and try to address them if we can. So thank you.
Well, thank you, all of you. I don't want you to stare at us. And so I'm going to blank ourselves out, but I'm going to start sharing our screen. We do have the handouts, and so you don't have to take notes, and hopefully we will be very informative and somewhat enjoyable also, okay? So I am going to start off, and I want to make sure, whoops, okay. I want to make sure that everyone can see this, or if someone can let me know if they can see this.
We can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. So as Laurie said, that I'm Dr. Choi. I'm the director of the Family Strengthening Center at Family Programs Hawaii. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Andaya. She's actually our deputy director and my eventual successor. And and she works at Family Programs Hawaii, not Kapiolani Child Protection Center. So she's our deputy director there, and very soon, not immediately, but eventually, I'll be moving to my new title as Director Emeritus of the center and the official Walmart greeter for our center. I know that Dr. Andaya looks very young, but remember when I first started, Judge Town introduced me to the parents at a court hearing, said, and stated, I know Dr. Choi looks like a high school student, but he's really a clinical psychologist, and I really respect his experience, expertise, and judgment. Well, Dr. Andaya may not look like a high school student, but she did when she was our resident at our center over 10 years ago. But I truly respect her experience, expertise, and judgment, and I'm very proud that she will be taking over the reins of our center as we embark on a bigger and better future. So please welcome Dr. Andayan, who will be a co-presenter at this presentation. I do want to tell you that we were very, very truly privileged to have been asked to present to you at this fantastic conference. I was part of the planning committee for the very first Ohana is Forever conference, and I was responsible for developing the logo for that conference, which I still believe is very pertinent today. And so our logo was building bridges to the future, a family for every child. I'm so proud of how this conference has developed to be one of the best in Hawaii, especially as it is being run by the youth themselves, who have done 1,000 times better job than when we first started, and we were trying to fumble and get this thing done. So I welcome you to this conference, and I hope that our presentation will help you and our youth to continue to build bridges for a better future for all. And so I want to start off with this question. In the last 100 years, how many pandemics have I survived during my lifetime? Anyone want to guess? No guess. Okay, well, believe it or not, of the 8 pandemics in the last 100 years, I have survived and experienced 7. Not all, but 7 of them. The first one I missed, the H1 virus in 1918. If I experienced that, I'll be over 100 years old. So I can tell you I'm old, but not over 100 years, okay? I did experience the H2N2 virus in 1968, the N3N2 virus, and then people who are more recent here remember the SARS, remember the swine flu, and then the MERS, and then the Ebola, which was a pretty big scare on that one. And all of these, the big thing is that we worked really hard on trying to control this, but we didn't do one thing that we're experiencing right now in terms of the COVID-19. Throughout all the rest, I don't remember ever being locked down. Now, I don't want to go into any political kinds of things on this, and I know that the lockdown really did help save lives and help the spread. But there was also some unintended consequences of the lockdown on our mental health, especially for our kids. And one of that is what I'm going to be talking about is increase in screen time. Now, before the pandemic, of course, the norm has been changed. So the new norm of children at playing, it looks like this, right? Looking at all of the different screens that we have. But unfortunately, with the lockdown, the screen time has increased dramatically, especially with the increase in remote schooling. And so our time has just increased tremendously. And through the more recent studies in the last couple of years, we've seen what that can do to the mental health of children. The other unintended consequences is our social isolation. We have the new norm in terms of our social distancing and not gathering together, and that has a major impact on our mental health of our children. And it starts off with our social isolation, and we're going to learn a lot about the effects on the mental health and development of children. We have some solutions to help you. We hope that you can kind of work on some of these things because it is a significant problem, and didn't quite think about how this has really affected our children's development. We certainly know how it's affected the illness and the death in terms of our community, but I think that we weren't that sure on how it's going to affect the mental health. And so I'll start off with the screen time. And screen time is very interesting. You know, when I was growing up, the screen was the television, okay? And you know how old I am? Did not have color TV. And I was very poor when we came back from after I got my degree. And so I could only afford a black and white TV, although they had color TV. So my children only looked at black and white TV and they said, how am I going to learn colors? Sesame Street is in black and white. And I just finally decided we needed to spend some money and get a color TV. But there's a lot of studies on TV and everyone was really concerned about that. So when all of a sudden we got these iPads and everything like that, we said, all right, we got a way to get them out of TV. But we made a mistake, obviously, because the iPads are still, and our phones and everything like that's still part of the screen time. And then what we did, we told them, get out, right? Don't watch TV, go outside. And that was one way to handle it. But you know, if you look at this, this is the kind of problem that we have. And this shows you, okay, they're going outside, but still hooked to the screen. And you can see how our people are outside on the playground, still looking at their screen. So what does the screen time look like? Well, there are different types of digital devices that we experience right now. So in a recent Pew research that did and looked at this, looked at the percentage of parents who said that their kids engaged in these type of screen devices. And then they divided up to in ages. So I was very shocked about some of this because you're counting ages from 0 to 3. Television, 74%, right, for that age. So you look at overall, 88%, 67%, 60% of the children, smartphones. And 44 now smartphones, my God, who gets it? Look at this, age 0 to 3, smartphones 49. So you see our kids looking at the smartphone. Yeah, I'm guilty of that too, right? So that's how I was the best grandpa. I was able to let them use my my smartphone, right? But there's quite a bit. And in addition to all of this, with the pandemic, we had another one, what we're doing right now, our Zoom meeting, 100% more, right? And that creates some issues about how much time it is. And this gives you an example of just a very short thing of what happens if you keep on staring at the screens. So how does that feel? That screen time was just 15 seconds. If you stared at that for a longer time, you'll get pretty dizzy and you'll get pretty much messed up in terms of your brain and your eyes. But that was just 15 seconds. So how often do people, really our children, use screen time? CDC data just recently came out. Ages 8 to 10 spend 6 hours a day in front of some screen. 6 hours a day. What the heck does that mean? It means that 6 hours is 1,500% more screen time each day than what you just experienced. 1,500% more every day. That's going to cause some issues, and it has. There's major harmful effects of excessive screen time. You can see it over here, the rubbings of the eyes, excessive blinking, tearing, headaches from the eye strain, and this picture tells it all. Okay, you can see the impact of on our vision by too much screen time. And in addition to that, all of our devices emit blue light. And we're kind of concerned about that, but we didn't do a lot of studies until more recently because of the extensive use of screen time. And the blue light causes some real major impacts. And there are professional studies that have been done. The most recent, you can see that the blue light can cause major problems. Macular degeneration, temporary blindness, early cataracts, retinal toxicity, your eye strain, and trying, wow, that's pretty scary. Just looking at that, I would be really kind of concerned about. But the blue color, the blue light also created problems with our brain development. Now that's scary. The research recently, and this is with, I don't know how they did this, but they did it with preschoolers, and they did MRIs of preschoolers, and they found that screen time changes the actual structure of the brain. Longer screen time was linked to lower amounts of white matter, and white matter compared to the gray matter is very important because the white matter is a fibrous tissues in our brain that connects all the parts of the brain. And so if that's not working and we don't have enough, then our brain isn't being connected. So they're not coordinated, and without that connection, the development of early abilities, early emerging abilities like literacy and language skills are impaired. So this is the MRIs that they did, and you can see over here, all the blue marks are the decrease in the white matter of the brain. So that's quite a bit with the exposure to blue light. So all of these areas are not working when they are looking at the blue light. Pretty scary. But screen time also affects our sleep time, right? And the blue light before bedtime can disrupt sleep, and it suppresses the melatonin, which you know is very important. That helps you to sleep. But what's really scary is the sleep disturbs our deep REM. And deep REM is very important psychologically and what we learn about learning, because if we don't have enough deep REM speed, rapid eye motion sleep, and that's at a certain level, we are not processing the information that we have learned during that day. So if you don't have REM sleep and you wake up and you say, what is my name? That's because you did not have enough REM sleep, okay? You gotta process this information. So that's very dangerous if you do not have enough sleep, and blue light interferes with that. So let's look at this, sleeping. So this is the recommended sleep hours per 24 hours at different ages. And I didn't really know this before I did this research, so that was really kind of good that I did this, because I had some experience. It reminds me of all the rules that we make for our kids, right? You can believe this, when my son, Darrett, was a senior, he asked me and my wife and I, if he could change his sleep time from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. And my wife immediately said, no. Now, inside of me, I thought, well, of course, you should be able to stay up later than 8 o'clock. I don't want you to be a nerd. However, I said nothing. I learned that the key to a successful marriage was to say, yes, dear, to almost all major decisions. And I guess it worked. I mean, we just celebrated our 45th anniversary last year. However, I really did not know the reason at that time why she said that. But as I was preparing this presentation, as you look over here as a teen, 8 to 10 hours, wow, that's a lot. I never quite thought about that. And to just let you know, we have to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I have to drive my kids to their school in Honolulu. And so you don't want to get that traffic. So we got up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And if you need almost 10 hours of sleep, then you gotta go sleep at 8 o'clock at night. And I gotta tell you, my wife was right again, 99.999%, she's right. Well, my son did good at 8 o'clock at night sleeping. And he graduated with honors from Punahou. He was a National Merit semifinalist. He was a UH Regent Scholar that graduated with highest honors with a straight A GPA, and was one of the youngest students accepted to the John A. Burns School of Medicine. And currently, he is a board certified pediatrician in Hilo today. And guess what? He still sleeps at 8 o'clock every night. Don't tell him that I told you that, okay, if you're from Hilo. But you can see how important it is to sleep. And hopefully that will also help your children be very successful. They have to learn how to sleep a little bit more because of all the problems that we've been having with the pandemic. And how about the screen time and obesity? A lot of research on that, but I don't think I need to say anything more when you see this. Oh my God. There's a direct correlation between screen time and obesity. The passiveness and the nature of the screen time contributes to that obesity. And the problem with obesity, a lot of medical problems. So it is a concern that we need to really look at. So how long is too long? Well, this is a survey that was taken and looking at different ages and how long does the children this is pre-pandemic, okay? Under 1 year of age, if you complete this, 29% of the baby watched 1.5 hours per day. Under one. Wow, that is scary. And then 64% of toddlers, 2 hours a day. And then children during the grammar school era, 4 hours a day, and teenagers, 7 hours a day. With the pandemic, the increase has been considerably. We see a lot more now. 76% of the people spend more time on their mobile phones, 34 more time watching TV because we're at home all the time, 45% more on the laptops, and 22% more time on their tablet. Considerably concerning because of that increase in time. So what is the recommendations? The American Academy of Pediatrics have some pretty strict regulations. They did modify it a little bit. They still believe that children under 18 should have no screen time, that they're too young and their brain is just developing, and you saw what can happen, and that's dangerous, okay? As you get a little bit older, you can watch some, but you have to be very careful. They didn't want to give an exact time frame, but they wanted you to all be comfortable. And even at the 2 to 5 year olds, about 1 hour a day. And then at 6 and older, you got to really monitor that, okay? Some of the other studies have been a little bit more clear. And so under 2, no screen time, 2 to 5, 1 hour, and then 5 to 18, less than 2 hours a day. Remember now, I know that's really hard, but in the statistics that we found, 7 hours a day for our teenagers. So less than 2 hours is the recommended time. And there's a lot of guidelines, and you can read this. I'm not going to go into much detail on this, but you can kind of see the different ways that you can kind of work with your teenager. But there are a lot of problems with screen time and the mental health problems in children. The brains are still developing. They're very, this is one of the problems, very susceptible to be addicted to screens. And you know, they have a low effort, high reward kind of activities, and that produces addiction. That's what causes some of our substance abuse problems. And the more that they do this, there also have been studies that they're higher risk of developing substance abuse problems also. Engaging in too much screen time does produce some clear-cut impairment in your cognitive development. You can see the other things in terms of loss of interest in other hobbies. They're just glued to that screen. And this is a physical deficit that we can see from too much screen time. So it's not just that you don't get to do other kinds of things. There's actual proof now that can cause significant cognitive impairment. Look at this. More than 2 hours a day for children got lower scores on the thinking and language tests. So everyone's gonna run home, take away those screens, right? I mean, I did this research and I said, uh-oh, better not do this, right, anymore. And of course, the obesity and the sleep disturbances. And so Dr. Ndai is going to talk a little bit more about that, but there are some clear things, especially about the screen, that can do some real psychiatric, psychological problems. So you can see with the, we really see one of the biggest is the ADHD also, and the impulsivity and the moodiness and the lack of patience because everything goes so fast in terms of these screens. So what do we got to do? Well, number one, you got to improve your modeling of this. You are not going to have time with your children like this. Okay, so no way that. And please don't do your meal times, and hopefully your family does not look like this. Okay. I think it's been very important for you to invest. I have this myself because because I spent a lot of time on the screens. The blue light can be protected. I recommend that you buy this for your kids. It's very inexpensive, kind of cool. They got some real big ones too, and good fashion ones. You need to keep the screen. Keep it out of the bathroom. Come on, I know this. Who has 1 hour to do their business in the bathroom? You know, after about 15 minutes, you're doing something else, right? It is the Zoom and the Fortnite and the Pokemon, right? That's what you're doing. My wife is addicted to Zoom. Every time I'm knocking on the door to use it, I know what's in there because you're not going to take an hour doing your business. Keep it out of there. That's really addicting, and it's very easy to do that. You know, I don't know if it helps you to do your business, but it's certainly a way to be away from everything else. But take it out of there. It's very tempting to stay in there. No screen time in the bed. There's a lot of problems with that. The sleep problem, the blue light, the effects on the brain development. But I didn't realize how big of a problem this was until I encountered this problem with my grandson, my oldest grandson, Kyler. First of all, I wanted to tell you that the fastest way, like I said, to be a great grandpa is to give him your cell phone, right? Oh, you're the best. You're the best grandpa because I get to play with this. So when my youngest son, Renan, who's a tattletailer, told me that Kyler, when he was 11 years old, got his smartphone taken away from him because he was talking to girls at 11 o'clock p.m. I was stunned. I was concerned. I said, unbelievable. But I wasn't worried about the damage to because of the extra screen time that might do to his eyes and his brain. But the first thing that came to my mind was, oh my God, my baby is talking to girls. So it can be a problem. Took that away from him. He lost his phone privileges because of talking to girls. But take it away. It's really important. So no screen time in bed, and then you don't have to worry to talk about the birds and the bees that early. Okay. And take breaks. This is really, really important. And so there's that 20-20-20 rule. Okay. Every 20 minutes, stop. Don't look at the screen. Look away. And you want to look away something far. So something 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So remember that 20-20-20 rule. Get your kids to do that, and you do it yourself. And that's going to help. It's going to help cleanse your eyes and help cleanse your brain in terms of that blue light. You do need to regulate the screen time. And I know how hard that is, grabbing that iPad away from your kid. And these are some suggestions, okay? You have to have an agreement. We did that with our grandchildren to help them ahead of time. Don't wait until after, because that's hard. Do it ahead of time. You can talk with them. You know, how long should you have it in terms of the screen devices? What time should it be turned off at night? You know, all of the screens have ways that it can be turned off automatically. So you got to look at that. You got to look at how it is turned off. And I know that's frustrating, and you turn it off when they're in the middle of the game, but it actually can go out. So you've seen some of those commercials. It can actually be programmed to close down. And then you need to do that consequences of the refusal to get off the device. So you need to work that out for sure. Increase your exercise, take a walk, go outside. There's a lot of things that this does. It increases endorphins, provides a feeling of happiness in your brain. So it can make major changes in the brain, boost your mood, and definitely improve your physical health. I think mindfulness is very, very important. It helps cleanse your mind. It helps get rid of that blue screen problems. And it really produces tremendous self-awareness and self-help, okay? Many different kinds of mindfulness exercises. And then what Dr. Andai is going to talk about is increase that socialization. That is extremely important.
We're going to switch gears a little bit. So Dr. Choi has talked about the hazards of electronics and using devices. I'm going to look more about isolation and some positive uses of our devices. It's not all bad, right? Everything is okay in moderation. But as we've seen with COVID and all of the changes that has taken place in our lives, there's the negative effects that come with that. So there's a changes in routines, being away from friends and peers, having limited physical activity because you can't play sports anymore, and then constantly being bombarded by disease, virus, death, and how the media loves to catastrophize what's going on. And so with that, we see some symptoms in our children, everything from difficulty concentrating to weakened immune systems, low self-esteem. So these are some of the things that we've seen with our clients that come into our center as well. And what's important is that if we don't address this and we don't provide intervention early on, they can actually exacerbate to more serious mental health issues. And that is where it becomes very concerning. And many times that's when we as adults, that's when we decide, okay, we're going to do something now because, our kiddo's talking about some really outlandish stuff or is talking about harming themselves. So hopefully we can see some of the symptoms early on, provide intervention. And if not, then looking at some of these mental health issues, definitely reaching out to a mental health provider. So one huge thing that has come up is loneliness, right? With the isolation, as Dr. Choi mentioned, this is the first time in 100 years we've had to lock down and stay home, stay away from everybody, cannot hang out with friends. That's huge for a lot of our kids. And that took a lot of time to adapt to. So this one article looked at 83 different articles that comprised of 80 studies. And 63 of those studies focused on isolation. And what they found was that there were mental health concerns of the children in these studies who previously, prior to the pandemic, did not have any mental health concerns. Now, the term loneliness is really interesting, right? Because it's the way something is being perceived. So my term or my definition of loneliness is very different from everyone else's term of loneliness. So when I feel lonely, I could be by myself. I don't like being alone too much. I like to bala'au and talk stories. But people who actually appreciate being lonely, they will be okay being apart. It's that loneliness and what's being perceived as being lonely. So even if you're being surrounded by people, if you're by yourself, oh wait, it's going by itself. My slides are going on its own. Sorry. So hold on. Okay. So if you are feeling lonely, even though you're being surrounded by people, that's when all of these mental health issues come up, right? Anxiety, depression, overthinking, difficulty, kind of transitioning. And so with the pandemic and being isolated, that's when we really need to look with our kids and determine whether they're experiencing this loneliness or not. And that's even more so important for our older kids, right? For the most part, as adults, we always look for the younger ones. They cannot help themselves sometimes. And we always think that older ones, we leave them to their own devices. They can take care of themselves. And that's not always true. Our teenagers, with the studies that I've looked at, they're the ones who are struggling the most with the pandemic because teenagers, families aren't cool anymore, right? We're on the outs. It's their friends. They want to hang out with their friends. And now we're telling them, oh, you cannot be with your friends. So they've struggled through the pandemic and they're trying to find ways to connect with their friends. And that's what they've been kind of having difficulties with. And so with the children and the teenagers, you're seeing sadness, anxiety, anger, frustration. A lot of the teenagers we see at our center, they're always telling us, oh, it's boring, it's boring. And we look deeper into that, we see that there's frustration, there's hurt because they can't socialize, and there's when the loneliness comes in. And so it's important for us to check in with them and make sure they're getting the emotional support, the social support that they need. So what then? What are we going to do? Right? What are our solutions? Because we cannot socialize. We still have this pandemic that's going on. Well, Urbina and colleagues did some studies and they came up with some suggestions. First thing is, we as adults, we need to keep ourselves in check, right? If we're stressed out, our kids are going to see us being stressed out. They're going to stress out, and that's not helpful at all. So you need to find hopefully healthy coping skills. So once we get that under control, then we can role model and provide our kids with the coping skills that they need to get through this pandemic. And realize that the way we coped with the pandemic in the beginning can be very different from how we're doing it. Fluctuates over time, right? And again, we want to make sure we're role modeling some appropriate ways to deal with our stress. Okay, so this is where we come to positive uses of electronics. So if you have young kids, you know Daniel Tiger. This is Daniel Tiger. Daniel Tiger is an educational program on PBS that provides situations, episodes that talks about social skills. And what we tell parents that come into our centers, you know, we often hear, especially with the population we deal with, you know, we hear, oh, you know, this kid, I don't know, they just always have meltdowns and they seem like they have no remorse. They hit their brother, their sister, and they're not ashamed or they're not scared or whatnot. A lot of the time it's because they haven't been taught to label emotions or to talk about emotions. We think about the environment where they came from. They really don't talk about what they're feeling on the inside, right? We see them using unhealthy coping mechanisms to deal with stressors. And so programs such as Daniel Tiger or any child program is a great opportunity for the caregiver to start labeling emotions. Oh, what do you think Daniel Tiger's feeling? What do you think the dad's feeling? What do you think the dad can do to help Daniel Tiger feel better? So that gives us opportunity to teach them about the emotions, about empathy, and using screen time in a more positive way. The other thing that comes up with the strategies they provided is giving your child a voice where they can. So basically, you know, you want to create boundaries for your child, but also be a listening ear and hearing about the ideas they may have. So as you're going through the pandemic, you want to talk to them in an age-appropriate manner about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, what do they think the coronavirus is about, how they feel that they can be safe. So all of these things are really important, and then offering accurate information. You know, Sixto was talking about listening to our youth, and I think that's so important because they come up with great ideas. I mean, look at this kid. Parents give him some rules to follow. No eating in the living room, no tablet in the kitchen, and what a genius. He came up with his own solution. So listen to the kids, right? They come up with some awesome, awesome things. So for younger children, observing behavioral changes, talking to them about COVID, offering cuddles and hugs when they need it, and then empowering them. So something we forget about little children is they can be empowered by providing them information to keep themselves safe. So one thing, you know, my husband's a retired fireman who worked with hazmat. So every time we leave the house, he always drills into us time distance shielding, which is something they learn in the fire department when they're dealing with hazardous situations. So time, limit the amount of time you're in an environment that can expose you to the virus. Distance, that's the 6 feet, right? And then the shielding, wearing your mask or your face shield. And with that information, you know, our kids were able to kind of feel a little bit better about returning to school. So that's something really important to keep in mind as the kids go back to school come the fall. Another thing that came up with some of my studies is video chatting. And then that kind of made me think about the visits we have right now, with the kids we work with. So I think right now they're having more in-person visits, but for those that still use video chat to do parent-child visits, it's really important to keep in mind the age of the child and their attention span. So having an hour-long visit with a child who can only pay attention for 5 minutes, that's kind of setting, you know, the visit up for failure. So maybe having shorter video chat time, but more frequently throughout the week. Okay, so other useful things with electronic devices. So one of the great things with our electronics is it offers us education, right? Now we can get all kinds of information just by the touch of a button, which is awesome. I love it. YouTube, right? I've learned to crochet, build a website, build a database, and do all kinds of fun stuff because of YouTube. And it offers you flexibility on learning. So if you're anything like me, where it's like you're watching something and then you get distracted and it's like, oh, wait, I missed that. Let me rewind, pause, rewind, pause, rewind. You can go back and forth and learn at your own pace. It also, again, provides you an opportunity to collaborate. You can learn activities like origami with your child. So even though you're using a device, it's more interactive. Kids have also learned to collaborate through the games that they play. So with this next screen, kind of gives examples of what I'm talking about. Okay, so this picture on the left here, if you're anything like me, you can call me, let me know. We can watch this tutorial together. I'm gonna get Dr. Choi to help me out and clear up his mailbox because he never responds to his email. But they have a tutorial for that, step by step. I mean, how awesome is that? And then this picture on the left is actually, I took a screenshot, and this is my younger kiddo playing online with his friends. So because of the pandemic, they can only have play dates online. So he's actually, you know, that's him in the forefront of the screen, and that's his friends on the back end. And they're working together, they're collaborating, they're doing this task, and they need to complete different missions. And so you have that collaborative process going on. They're talking, they're problem solving, they have their conflicts because they're always like, oh, how come you didn't shoot me? Oh, I never shoot you. Yeah, you did. And so they have conflict resolution opportunities where they learn those skills. So even though they can't play in person, they're still able to practice socialization. Older kiddos, oh my goodness, teenagers, gotta love them. So teenagers, they're so much fun, right? Because they have all the answers and we know nothing. So I asked my 14-year-old, yeah, I gotta get this presentation to these people, and the topic is about the pandemic and how to deal with the pandemic. What are some challenges? So what do you think are some challenges for teenagers? And his response to me was, yep. So, right on. So yeah, one thing that taught me with that interaction is we need to approach our teenagers when they're ready to talk, right? We cannot just make them talk. So on another day, I asked the same question and he said, friends, socialization. Again, 2 words, but more profound. I can use that. It's in line with what I'm presenting. So I thanked him. So with our teenagers, we need to provide them the space and the grace because they've kind of missed out on so many things. They missed out on their sports, on these milestones, graduation. I'm so glad somebody came up with drive-by graduations because it's still a way to celebrate, to socialize, but being safe, right? So with this particular picture, so again, with this, my younger son, this is Roblox, by the way, which is a really popular game right now that's going on for preteens and teenagers. And this mom was just fabulous. I swear she should be like Mother of the Year because her son had a birthday, and so they celebrated by Roblox. So all of these characters in the background here, those are all the friends, their avatars. And they were invited to this birthday party. The mom dropped off cupcakes to each person's house. And then during their game time, they paused and they all sang happy birthday to the birthday boy here. And then they got to eat their cake. So again, being creative with the electronics and being able to socialize has been key during this pandemic. Now with our kiddos with special needs, it's even more so important providing the structure, activities for them to participate in, and then maintaining communication with therapists and their schools. And as they're going back to school, it's even more so important that we communicate with the school, let them know about any regressed behaviors, behavioral concerns, and also keeping in contact with the mental health professionals. So here at our center, we've been really blessed because we were doing telemedicine even before the pandemic. So once the pandemic occurred, we dove right in and we were able to still do our evaluations, to do our therapy, and we didn't really miss a beat. And our services were provided to those who were in need. We also got creative, so YouTube again, right? This is my virtual office here, and it's I share this screen during our session, and the kiddos can pick whether they want to play Connect 4, Uno, if they want to do meditation. I have PCIT handouts, which PCIT, if you haven't heard about it, let us know. Dr. Choi and I would love to do a presentation on PCIT. It's great. It really has demonstrated positive uses with parents and building a parent-child bond because we're able to coach them on appropriate ways to interact with their child. But I digress. Okay, moving back to the presentation. So our virtual therapy office has been a great way to, again, use our devices in a positive way. And these kids, they're so used to using this type of platform that it's not a hindrance. It actually, what I find is it enhances their experience at times, especially because we can't be in person. So Sisto, I was so pleased that he went before us because what he talked about is right along the alley of my few closing slides, and it's the systems. Again, Dr. Choi said, thank you so much for having us present. And I echo that because with the pandemic, using telemedicine, we were able to connect with RAP services, specialty courts, other therapists, DHS providers, and GALs. And we worked together to provide continuity of care. And as hopefully we get to the closing of this pandemic, crossing fingers, I really hope we continue to use telemedicine to reach out to other communities that may not be able to come into our offices. We are looking at providing PCIT to the neighbor islands soon, crossing our fingers, we'll do that. So those are some things that we're looking at, and the use of telemedicine has its place. And so hopefully we'll continue to use that in order to work on our most vulnerable of individuals in our community, which is our children, and help strengthen our families so that they can go home to a safe space. All right.
So we're going to be able to have a few questions, but I just want to echo what Dr. Andaya says. We're very proud of our center and what we're doing. If you need psychological support, we're here. We do trauma-informed family strengthening services. We're in a new place, Manoa Marketplace. We will hopefully have an open house, and we'd like you to invite you here. If you want to know more about us, just scan the CR code over there, and it'll take you to our website, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. We are venturing out to the neighbor islands where we really want to provide the kind of support, and have a hard time getting services. That's going to take a little work, but we're very excited about starting to move and provide more services to the neighbor islands. So thank you very much. I don't know if anyone, the moderator, wants to help us with the questions, or Laurie, if you, what do you want to do?
We do have a couple of questions, and so let me just kind of lift them up a little, and then also if anyone wants to drop a question in, because we do have about 10 more minutes.
Yeah,
yeah, we did our time.
Yeah, very good. Excellent.
I promise that.
Dr. Choi, the first question that came in is probably the most important. If you are going to transition to Walmart, we would like to know which Walmart you will be working in so that we can come and visit.
I'm gonna be at our door, at our office.
He's going to be security outside our door with his dog.
Yeah, I'm already the janitor, so I'm just doing one more thing.
Well, thank you. And then thank you also for addressing some of the mental health needs of the professionals who are working with the young people. And I think that's been very helpful for us. And some of us have been Zooming so much that I think some of our brain cells have also deteriorated. The question, one of the questions that's come up is about telehealth and telehealth options and resources for young people, especially in care. Do you have some thoughts about where those opportunities are, what you see emerging for telehealth, telemedicine for mental health in the near future?
I mean, what I'd like to say, and Dr. and I can do this, is that the remote areas, somehow they can still get internet. And everyone has a smartphone now. Unbelievable. And I think that one of the biggest things, the most important things for telemedicine is to provide services for people who have a hard time getting to places. In the rural areas, we've had a hard time with that. We've been very impressed what telehealth can do. And with parent-child interaction therapy, we've done that. This pandemic, although it's bad, has really improved our way to provide telehealth to parent-child interaction therapy, which has been a wonderful way of improving and strengthening families. And that's why we're excited about possibly doing this through the neighbor islands, through our telehealth system.
Yeah, they've actually, even before the pandemic, in my previous place of employment, before Dr. Choi stole me, I was with the DoD, and so the military was also already implementing telemedicine to reach out to the Pacific region. So my role was a pediatric psychology consultant for the Pacific region, and so we did telemedicine. We provided therapeutic services to children who were in Japan, Okinawa. So it was already being used. So it was really fortuitous that once the pandemic hit, it's like, okay, I know what we need to do. We need to set up, any crisis kind of situations, how to address that. So I can see now how other providers, not only our center, but other providers and the insurance panels are providing opportunities to use telemedicine, and it's a lot easier. So I can see it continuing. And the kiddos that we work with, especially the teenagers, they love it because they can have their phone and they can be like, well, yeah, this is what happened. And they just are so comfortable with it. And so it provides that sense of, again, safety for them so that they can openly share whatever's going on.
Yeah, to tell you how advanced we're going, we are soon to be signing a contract for Thailand. We're doing some work with through Thailand. They've had some problems with the sex trafficking and things like that. And the only thing is that we have to work, they're one day ahead of us. And so we have to start working very late at night for their morning the next day. And so we're trying to work that out. But if we can do that, well, we can do it at anywhere. And it was pretty neat. We were able to do a full PCIT therapy with 2 families in Thailand, and was very successful.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And boy, so looking at some of the blessings of what this kick in the pants has done to us, right? Another question came up about ideas for virtual parent-child visits. Do you have some tips? Because those are still, probably going to happen, and even like this remote situation, right? So what are some of your tips?
I think it depends on the age of the child. So I tell parents, even with parent-child interaction therapy, right, we do a lot of praising and be animated. I always tell them, think of Elmo. There's a reason why younger kids love to watch Elmo. He's colorful, he's like super animated, and that's what draws their attention. So for a lot of our parents, it's hard for them because they're not used to that, right? They're not used to being interactive. So that's the beauty of PCIT, is that we teach them the words to say, how to be animated, bringing toys to the screen that the child might be interested in. So those kind of things. And again, keeping it short enough to engage and not prolonging it. So if the child is like not feeling it, not forcing it, because that's going to be more frustrating for the parent who's already feeling like I'm losing that bond with my child. And it's going to be less frustrating for the child as well.
Thank you. Thank you. That's helpful. One of the questions I think that's coming up as we, God willing, are looking at least a transition back. Schools will be, elementary schools will be back in person, high schools maybe some hybrid, and even in our workplaces, because we've gone, you know, all of us have gone virtual as well. There's some awkwardness about coming back together. And so for our children, and maybe even for ourselves, do you have some ideas about how we can all cope and how our young people can cope with that transition?
Well, you gotta watch how you look now, kid, because I'm telling you, since this time, I've never seen so many people without makeup and no more pants and all those things. So when you're in person, you gotta look a little bit different than when you do it this Zoom. But anyway, Dr. Andaya will talk more about that.
You know, I think it's good to realize that it is that transition, right? And being patient with not only the other person, but with ourselves. I think we put so much responsibility and so much pressure on ourselves to perform certain ways that usually it's our own negative self-talk that takes over. And realizing, like I tell my kids, hey, everyone else having a hard time and it's okay. So giving yourself grace, I think, is really important.
And then what about for our young people, to help them transition back to school?
Oh, go ahead.
So for the teenagers, it is awkward. You know, it's really funny because my teenager tends to be more on the quiet side. And so I kind of watch him. He's very different from me. Like I'm okay with being awkward. But for him, he tends to kind of want to watch at first, which is okay. I think for us as adults, it's important to, again, have that open dialogue and to validate their feelings. You know, it is a weird transition, and not only just reintegrating and socializing, but also talking about COVID itself. Like, I think that's one thing we forget. It's like, oh yeah, you know, everybody get back to normal, but this is a new normal. And for our children, in the back of their minds, there is that fear. You know, they hear it all the time about, oh, what if I catch it? What if I give it to my grandpa? You know, that's the valid fears. And so really talking about that. And fortunately, a lot of our kids, as we see, they're so resilient. And I really do believe that they hold these golden nuggets of knowledge that if you talk to them, they sometimes come up with the most amazing ideas and solutions. And so I always emphasize open communication and just being there for them, providing them the space and opportunity to talk does wonders.
Thank you. You're so right about the hope and the resiliency. And so if we were in person, this would be the place where I would ask everybody to applaud and thank both. Let me talk a little bit about an activity that we would like you to do, everyone, and also the transition back to everyone being back in the room. So before we take a break, I would like to ask folks to participate in an online activity. So in the chat, in a couple of seconds, you're going to see a link. We know that the pandemic has been hard, but there are so many glimmers of resilience and hope, and especially from the young people. I think that's why Dr. Andaya's comment is so important to us, to look to them for that resilience and hope. So in the link that'll be in the link that's in there right now, actually, you can write, when you go into the link, you can write some thoughts about how young people and young adults have given you hope. And it'll populate into kind of like a word cloud that we'll share when we get back together. We will get back together at 11:20, so we'll go into a break. But during the break, there's going to be a video about Hawaii's plan for the pandemic relief funds that Sixto was talking about. there are wonderful opportunities for young people to have direct assistance, extended care, and expanded benefits for higher education and further education. So these are very important. Please watch the video if you haven't watched it already. And we will be breaking for until 11:20. So thank you again, Dr. Choi.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And stay on, don't go away.
Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, presented by the State of Hawaii's Department of Human Services, Child Welfare Services, and the High Hopes Initiative. The Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 became law on December 27, 2020. The law contains the provisions for the Supporting Foster Youth and Families Through the Pandemic Act and provides significant assistance to young people with experience in foster care during the pandemic. The pandemic support includes extended services such as entry into foster care and imua kako, CHAFE program support such as emergency financial support and program flexibility, and lastly, educational training voucher or ETV changes such as increase in funding and flexible eligibility. This act creates a moratorium on aging out of care. The moratorium states that child welfare agencies cannot terminate services for youth in foster care due to age. Any youth currently in foster care has the option to stay in foster care until at least September 30th, 2021. And for young people who age out of foster care at age 18 or older, we have imua kako, which is extended foster care. Extended services or re-entry for imua kako. If you are currently in imua kako and age out soon, you may remain in the program until September 30th, 2021. If you turn 21 after January 27, 2020, you may choose to re-enter imua kako until September 30th, 2021. Imua kako program requirements such as school and work are temporarily waived, meaning if you were formerly ineligible for imua kako due to not meeting these requirements, you may apply to enter or re-enter. If you are about to age out of care, talk to your social worker about remaining in foster care until September 30th, 2021 or entering imua kako. If you or someone you know turned 18 or 21 during the pandemic, please contact your independent living provider for help to enter or re-enter extended care. If you need help locating your independent living provider, check out the Foster Hope Hawaii app or visit www.ilpconnections.org. Your independent living provider according to your island is Halehipa on Oahu, Haleopio on Kauai, Salvation Army for Hawaii Island, and Maui Youth and Family Services for Maui, Lanai, and Molokai. Applications are available on Shakatown at www.shakatown.com. Educational Training Voucher, or ETV, provides financial support to qualified youth to attend college or vocational programs. Under this act, the maximum ETV award increases from $5,000 to $12,000 per individual per year. Students who were unable to attend school or whose program was interrupted because of the pandemic may still be eligible for ETV for a period of time. The enrollment and satisfactory academic progress requirements are waived, and there is more flexibility for use of ETV funds. If you or someone you know is in a post-secondary program, already an ETV recipient, applied for ETV, and or postponed going into a program, please contact your independent living provider or visit Shakatown at www.shakatown.com for more information and instructions. This law allows us to provide direct financial assistance to young people between the ages of 18 through 26 who have spent one day in foster care on or after their 14th birthday. Epic Ohana is assisting Child Welfare Services with distributing these funds. A survey has been created to provide direct financial assistance to young people ages 18 through 26 of up to $1,000. To apply, please visit bit.ly/pandemic assistance survey. Once we receive the completed survey, we will work to confirm your eligibility, provide you with further information, and connect you to assistance. These supports are time sensitive, and most of the items that were just shared is only available until September 30th, 2021. If you feel that you are eligible for any of these benefits, please reach out to your independent living provider or visit Shakatown at www.shakatown.com or visit www.epicohana.org/youth pandemic support. Let's get through this pandemic together.
Aloha and welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your workshops and that break and the information that we just watched. We all survived 1 year and then some above a worldwide pandemic. At the start of it, many of us didn't really know how things were going to turn out, or even if this virtual living, doing things virtual would even work. So we've experienced many hardships and felt disconnected. And while things felt bad, we also experienced a lot of hopefulness and joy. We found ways to stay engaged and connect with each other. In your workshops, we were asked, both adults in the room and our young people, the same question about one another. What was something that an adult, if you were a young person, did to give you hope? And if you were an adult, what was one thing a young person did to give you hope? Here are what your folks said. So let's kind of see the different answers. So one thing that an adult supporter did for young people were things like give them happiness, check on them, push them to get better grades, talk to them, a lot about talking to them, joy, love, life, becoming youth advocates, being Ohana, having family time, supporting each other, and game nights, new generational advocates. I really love all those answers that our young people gave, and let's kind of take a look at what the adults had shared. What were some things that young people did to give them hope? So I see a lot of people said adaptability, positive energy, patience. I love how that's the main one. Kindness, resilience, smiling, understanding, flexibility, traveling. The town hall, optimistic, innovative, caring, made them laugh, made them heal, not giving up on each other, thoughtfulness, offered help, inspiring. I love it. And I really hope that these things continue to happen throughout the pandemic and even after the pandemic, that we kind of continue to give each other hope. Because we're not done with the pandemic yet. So I hope that we continue to provide each other hope and to one another throughout the world, throughout our lives, not during the pandemic, and just in every moment of our life moving forward. So thank you everyone for participating in that activity. Every year we're excited to share FIRE Talks, or Foster Youth Advocacy Talks. This year we'll hear some inspirational presentations from Catalina Freitas Estores, Hyola Pagud, Anastasia Newman, and Noi Warchit.
My name is Catalina, and I'm a former foster child who spent 16 years in care and aged out at 18. I met my biological parents at the age of 16. My father is still incarcerated, and my mother remains homeless, living on the beach and sickened from the uses of illegal substances. Going through 22 foster homes was tough, but it has shaped and molded me into the strong, goal-driven young adult I am today. I've always searched to find my place in life, and that desire of wanting to know who I am and where I came from fuels me to Holomua. The older I get, the more I rediscover parts of what makes me me. Having this ability to manifest not what I have lost, but what I can reveal from within gives me that power to not feed into today's society of former foster youth. After aging out of the system, I then committed to a sport that challenged me in all aspects of life. a sport that was not just my utmost passion, but one that I became obsessed with because it helped to fulfill those empty spots in my heart from living without family. Bodybuilding instilled discipline in my life and such a desire to follow my dreams, something that I believe my parents, had they had been healthy enough, could and should have given to me. Being a part of something was what I needed to help channel this drive, a drive that helped me find light in this darkness. I believe that life begins at the end of every comfort zone. During the years being a competitive athlete, I also learned that my past didn't break me or define me, but being a foster child is a part of who I am and actually what makes me me. By the age of 25, I turned from an amateur to a professional athlete in the NPC, National Physique Committee bodybuilding community. I had finally gained control of who I could become, and the scars of my past just gave me such greater purpose for the reasons of why I'm living here today. I want to remind all youth that we are not defined by what we have lost, but by what we really can create. After years of being a known professional athlete, I then got pregnant and life found its way to feeling fully complete by blessing me with a baby boy. The transition to a parent was one of the most terrifying feelings, especially when I didn't have that benefit of being raised by a mother or father figure. Even in the midst of so many trials and errors, I can confidently say I would not want to change my experiences with how the growth of my motherhood has taken its place. I struggled a lot with allowing people to get close to my child because of my insecurities and personal past traumas. This had fully controlled me until I was able to break through those overwhelming episodes and find that courage to cut all strings that connected me to the hurt of my past. My greatest growth from not perfection, but comes from rock bottom and times of struggles. Speaking as a parent, from not having parents to embracing parenthood, I will do my very best to make sure my child grows up knowing his mom will always be there for him. Let it be the stormiest weathers or the moments of the horrors. He will always find his mother in front of him as an armor of life. Even with so many scars, I am still grateful to have lost in love than to not have anything at all. I am proud of my life story as I am speaking today. My scars and pain have been my platform for all my success. Without this experience of being a foster child, I would have never felt such powerful emotions in wanting to help other youths just like me. I now have this opportunity to touch lives and work as an employee for Epic Ohana. Epic provided a huge helping hand in a time of need before I even aged out of the system. Nothing becomes great without sacrifice, so if I can make it, so will you. And if you make it, so can our brothers and sisters in the generations after you. We all have a purpose to fulfill in life, so let no statistic hold you back from revealing your biggest potential. Let no doubt shadow your vision for a better future, and do not accept society's perceptions that may restrain you from Holomua, moving forward and progressing forward. For the adult supporters here today, I ask that you please see beyond the youth's behaviors or the ways that they use to protect themselves. See past what might negatively act out their own pains. Focus on their potential and spirit, not judging how they might act today. And love them beyond their wounds to a place of healing and full success. Thank you.
Aloha pumehana mai kākou apau. My name is Keola Pagud, and I stand here strengthened and whole. Serving on the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board has been one of the most impactful opportunities that has been offered to me. I served on the East Hawaii and Oahu board for a little over 5 years combined. It's been an incredible experience. While serving on the East Hawaii board in Hilo, I bonded with my foster brother and sister colleagues, phenomenal people. We served our local communities by coming up with ideas that would turn the curve in a positive direction for our transitioning foster youth. Real talk, like too often, some of my foster brothers would get hooked on substances or run away from home. I would witness some of my foster sisters dropping out of college even though they wanted to be there. So our board stood on the concept of hope, but did we really put in the work necessary to make a difference? For me, I'm definitely proud of the work that has been accomplished through the board. I mean, over this past decade, we've spoken at hundreds of events with community leaders, state legislators, and young people in hopes to turn the needle, I should say, in a positive direction. We created unique projects such as Bags of Hope, in which we stuffed backpacks or duffel bags with essential items because, frankly, some of our transitioning foster youth leave with a trash bag. In addition, I aided the passage of some key legislation. One in particular is Imua Kako, or Voluntary Care to 21. Act 252 provided some essential benefits for these transitioning youth. For myself, I worked hard. I earned a Master's of Social Work degree, and today I'm privileged to be an Imua Kako liaison with their state's child welfare system to make sure that our young adults receive these benefits and to keep these young adults accountable as well. Personally, the High Hopes Board has allowed me to expand my efforts to national and congressional opportunities. I've been privileged to serve the Jim Kesey Youth Opportunities Initiative. I interned with the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute in Washington, D.C. At the same time, I served in Senator Mazie Hirono's congressional office. Big privileges. This board taught me how to be a fighter, to stay educated, and to be vigilant. The bottom line is, without the High Hopes, I wouldn't be this fired up about life, about serving others. I wouldn't be a person who is whole. This opportunity provided me with a healthy space to deal with my deep komaha or grief. Much respect to our host agency, Epic Ohana, our board staff, community supporters, and our courageous young people who have created this container for deep growth. Deep respect to Delio Olima, Gene Hamilton, Lori Tochiki, Kamaili Miyasato, Mark Galloway, and so many others. And as Representative Karen Bass has once told me and my colleagues, let the issue drive you, not your ego. He mahalo pau ole no oko. Continue the warrior work. Thank you.
Honestly, the COVID-19 pandemic was the best and the worst thing that's ever happened to me personally. Just before the start of the pandemic, I emancipated from the foster care and moved out on my own for the very first time in life. At that time, things seemed good, really good. I was working every day, visiting family during the weekdays, and hanging out with friends on weekends. You can say I definitely tried to keep my schedule full and full of surprises. When the pandemic started, that all changed instantly. This pandemic has led to nationwide travel restrictions, conference cancellations, restricted working conditions, and in many cases, left a lot of us feeling lonely. It was truly a scary time for me to be left alone in the world. During the beginning of the pandemic, there was an overwhelming amount of uncertainty among everybody. I can recall so many times during this past year where I felt like I had no control over my life and did not know what to do. This is where my life started to feel off balance, and with that, stress, fear, and anxiety set in. I am fortunate enough to not have been financially affected, but social isolation and staying hopeful was the most difficult for me. Actually, I think the most difficult part was having to adjust to the new norm so quickly. Going from being out every day to spending most of my time at home was a weird time for me. I started to become withdrawn and unmotivated to do everyday things, which was very unlike me. At this point, I felt like I had two options left. Let the pandemic blues get to me or make lemonade out of life's lemons. Once I changed my perspective, my way of thinking, my problems seemed a little less problematic and seemed a bit brighter. Before, I used to see the pandemic as an enemy, always trying to get between me and happiness. Now I see the pandemic in a different light. I see it as an opportunity for growth and overcoming challenges. From the start of the COVID-19 until now, I have grown in more ways than I could ever imagine for myself. This new way of thinking has forced personal growth and helped me realize my own inward strength and creativity I never knew was there. It has helped me learn to become my own invaluable resource. So how do we move forward after COVID-19 changed the world? COVID-19 has changed our lives one way or another, and we have all faced different levels of hardship and uncertainty. What is important to remember is how we adapt to that new way of life. All resilient people experience stress, setbacks, and difficult emotions, but they also tap into their strengths and seek help from support systems to overcome challenges and work through problems. Staying hopeful during difficult times can take a lot of practice, but it is one of the most important components of being a resilient young adult. It kind of helps us put things into perspective, reminding us that tough times do not always last, and there will always be better days ahead, even if it doesn't feel like it. We must take the good and bad from the past few months and learn to move forward with that in our new life experiences.
If there is anything that foster kids know for sure, it's these three things. The only thing certain in foster care is uncertainty. We understand loss and the pain that comes from being separated from family. And we know more than we ever want to about trauma. According to a national study, youth who have experienced foster care suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder 6 times more than the general population and 2 times more than returning war veterans. Surviving foster care feels like the fight of our lives, but that's child's play because the real work actually starts after. And it's a job that we're often ill prepared for. We always hear that we need to heal from our past so that we can have a better life, but no one talks about how to do that. No one talks about how to deal with feelings of unworthiness and how to navigate that in relationships. Because your belief system is that if the most important people in your life didn't want you, why would anyone else? No one tells you that trauma is stored not just in your mind, but your body too. The ACEs test evaluates individuals based on their adverse childhood experiences. The higher the score, the higher the adversity, and the likelihood of experiencing negative health outcomes as an adult. 9 out of 10 is usually a great score on a test, but unfortunately, this is not one that I wanted to do well on. It would seem like the odds were stacked against me, but through this work, I have learned that trauma is not permanent. The adolescent brain can heal through positive and protective factors. I've sat in therapy for the last 14 years, digging deep and doing the work. I've had to make peace with the really ugly pieces of my life. And on the days when I felt like the walls were crumbling in on me, I found refuge in the family and community that I have chosen and have chosen me. In a sense, you can say that I'm a refugee, the same way my mother was, displaced by war from her homeland of Laos. Poverty-stricken, she gave birth to my eldest brother on a makeshift toilet with no plumbing in a refugee camp. My mother endured food insecurity and housing instability, as well as complex trauma, very much like my own childhood. Science says that these pain patterns have been passed down to me. We call this generational trauma, but luckily for me, I come from a long line of warriors and their spirit of resilience is ingrained in me. And just like my mother, there's no quit in me. I became a mother myself as a minor in foster care, and that almond-eyed baby girl made me want to break down all the generational curses in our path. More than anything, I wanted her to see me achieve, because where I come from, that didn't happen often. So when I was 17 and my daughter was only 6 months old, I joined the High Hopes Youth Leadership Board on Oahu. And little did I know, the tools I developed to advocate and help others were the very things I needed for my own healing. I have proudly advocated for my foster brothers and sisters all of my adult life. I always thought that advocacy was about affecting change so that others can benefit from it. But through my 11 years of advocacy, I have received as much, if not more, than what I have given to my people. I used to say that I was a product of broken systems, but now, because of the High Hopes Board, I say that I'm the product of love, mentorship, opportunities, hope, and healing. In the process of trying to fix systems so that others won't get lost in it, I have found myself. Thank you.
Mahalo to Catalina, Keola, Anastasia, and Noi for those words of wisdom and inspiration. At this time, we'd like to ask everyone to take a few minutes to fill out an evaluation about the conference so far. It helps us to learn each year to put on the best conferences possible for all of our participants. So we'll be launching that poll now, and you should see it popping up soon. And thank you in advance for answering these questions. The first question for youth: what is the best reason to attend our OIF conference? Do you know how to locate resources available to you if you are a youth? You're also able to rate Sixto Cancel's The Hidden Revolution, speaking on a scale. Please rate our awesome FIO talks that we just had heard as well. And of course, did you experience any technical problems in participating today? And thank you again for having patience with us today. If you were an adult who participated in an adult workshop, you're also able to rate that presentation. For our young people, you can do the same and rate our youth breakout session, envisioning our future together. We'll give you a few moments to finish up the evaluation. Thank you everyone who completed those polls. These polls really help us to have the, like I said, have the best conferences for you all participating. Next up, we have some amazing entertainment from two local groups, the amazing Kapena and Navai. Please feel free to sing, dance along, but don't go away, because afterwards we will be giving out some great prizes and you need to be present to win. Mahalo.
We continue on this journey with OEVA and then take you to some place special in just a little bit. All right, ladies, let's make some noise. And our final stop on this musical journey takes you to the beautiful isles of French Polynesia, a place known as Tahiti. And there they greet you with the word, Yaorana. Yaorana, oi tamarara, yete tamarore, yora, yorana, yora te parera, yora, yorana, yora te parera, yorana, oi tamarara, yete tamarore, yora, yorana, yora te parera, yora, yorana, yora te parera. Away.
Yeah. Oh, no, 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 never, never let you go. No. So run, come quick, hey. Nobody play no fun and treat. Cause what we forgive you is our sweet music. My desiraka, desiraka, respect. Come on, come reggae music at the ready at the base. Right? You wanna take sugar? You now have none. You drink your coffee black and I have mine's white. My life is a mystery, so let's live for today. We don't know our destiny, so let's love each other. Say, never gonna give you up, no way. No matter what your papa say, girl, 'cause you promised me you never gonna give you up. No matter what your papa say, girl, you promised me you never leave me. We dated through high school and we had made promises to love each other. I'm never gonna give you up, no, 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 no. No matter what your papa say, girl, you promised me you never leave me. Never gonna give you up, no matter what your papa say, girl, 'cause you promised me you never leave me. My son went to a town called gambling. Said a little girl called bowling. She never let me turn around. And then I never let me. I had a small dress girl all eye. Thought she had a pretty dress girl all eye. You better go outside, go cry. Out because a pretty dress girl all eye. Me crazy, crazy for you, girl. I met a boy who didn't know which way to turn, which way to go. You didn't like girls, didn't like books, didn't like going to school. But when he said he didn't like reggae, I had to lose my cool. Everybody sing it, say what you talking about. You say you don't like the reggae beat. What you talking about? You say you don't like singing, everybody. You must be crazy, crazy. You must be crazy, crazy, crazy. You must be, yeah. I met a man who didn't know which way to turn, which way to go. He didn't like cars, didn't like boats, didn't like anything fast. But when he said he didn't like reggae, his face I had to laugh. What you talking about? You say you don't like the reggae beat. What you talking about? You say you don't like the reggae. You must be crazy, crazy. You must be crazy, crazy, crazy. You must be. Well, I met a boy who didn't know which way to turn, which way to go. You didn't like girls, didn't like books, didn't like going to school. But when he said he didn't like reggae, I had to lose my cool. What you talking about? You say you don't like you don't like the reggae. What you talking about? You say you don't like the reggae beat. You must be crazy, crazy. talking about? Ooh, you don't like the reggae. What you talking about? You say you don't like the reggae. What you talking about? You say you don't like the reggae. Hey, what you talking about?
Wasn't that amazing? Wasn't that amazing musical guests and amazing songs to sing along to and dance along to? It's now time to give out some of our prizes to our youth and young adults. So we're giving away 3 $100 Visa gift cards. When I read your names, please type here and your name in the chat box, and someone will contact you about getting a prize to you. Again, you must be present to win. If we don't see a here and your name in the chat box, I will call out another name. If you're sharing a phone or a computer with someone else, please type your first name and the word here as well, so we know who's responding. So here is the first winner of the 3 winners. Our first winner is, drumroll please, Naya Spring. Naya, are you here in the chat? Yay, I see a hello from Naya. Naya, if you just want to make sure you put a here and say it's you, but I know that's you. Okay, thank you, Naya. Congratulations. Okay, for our second winner of the $100 gift card is Kuipo Kaukini DuPont. Kuipo, are you here? Let's see your response in the chat. Okay, I see a youth participant say here, but if that's you, Kuipo, can you just say here and type your name as well? Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Kuipo. For our last of the 3 winners for the $100 gift card, we have Loke Gonzalez. Do we have a Loke Gonzalez here with us today in the room? Okay, I see you. I see you in the chat box. If you just want to put here and your name as well, so our chat moderators can pick you out of the chat and make sure you get your gift card, that would be great. But congratulations again to all our winners, and mahalo to all our amazing entertainment. We will be having more entertainment, but I can't believe we already got to the end of our virtual Ohana is Forever conference, and we all made it here. We'd like to thank the following people that made this conference possible. Starting with all our panelists, all our presenters and entertainers, Family Courts Court Improvement Program, Department of Human Services Child Welfare Services, Epic Ohana and the High Hopes Boards, Family Programs Hawaii, Halikipa, Salvation Army, and the Victoria S. and Bradley L. Geist Foundation, as well as Friends of Casa and everyone else who worked so hard on this conference, and all of you who have attended with us today. Thank you for all of us for joining today, and we hope that you've learned something new and were inspired to Holomua with a vision for young people to better serve our keiki and our young people. Mahalo to everyone. Take care of yourself and each other, and we'll see you next year. But we also have a few more entertainment for you to sing along and dance to as we end our program. Next up, we have music from Ka'i Scallon and Miley Soul. Thank you.
I wrote this song for all the dreamers in the world because I didn't want y'all to stop sailing towards your dreams. Now I come from a long line of voyagers, people that sailed the ocean. So this song is dedicated to everybody who's got a dream. I'm from the bottom and I'm headed to the top. Yeah, yeah, making money, taking chances, mopping up. Yeah, yeah, I got the juice, I got the pull, I'll never stop. Yeah, yeah, all my people from the bottom reaching up, say, I'm sailing. Yeah, 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 sailing all the way to my dreams. I'm sailing. Yeah, 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 sailing all the way to my dreams. Yeah, I'ma make my mama proud with this. I'ma rock 1,000,000 crowds, I bet it. I'ma stack that money, money, money real high. My daddy gon' see me fly. Back then they didn't want me, now my lines stay hot. They be tingling all the day long. My phone's off the hook, now I got you shook. For all my people living by the book. Say, keep my heels high but my head real low. Never trust the left hand that wants the right to know. Heels real high but my head real low. Never trust the left hand that wants the right to know. I'm from the bottom and I'm headed to the top. Yeah, yeah, making money, taking chances, mopping up. Yeah, yeah, I got the juice, I got the pull, I'll never stop. Yeah, yeah, all my people from the bottom reaching up. Say, I'm sailing, yeah, yeah, sailing all the way to my dreams. I'm sailing, ooh, sailing all the way to my dreams. Now, if you got a dream, if you got a dream, let me hear you say, yeah, 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 yeah. If you got a dream, if you got a dream, let me hear you say, yeah, 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 yeah. If you got a dream, if you got a dream, let me hear you say, yeah, yeah. You know it. If you got a dream, if you got a dream, let me hear you say, yeah, yeah. Keep sailing towards your dreams. Graduates of 2021, congratulations once again.
If I was to leave tomorrow, and I'm gone, would there only be tears of sorrow, or would we know that the future lives on? Would the people still want to tell my story, or would they just sing my songs? Tell me, would the people say they truly know me? And tell me, would those people be my loved ones? 'Cause I heard the words from the birds to the sun singing, look out, 'cause here I come, whoa. And I know the seeds need the rain as it proceeds to say, look out, 'cause here I come, whoa. Oheme na no e kulai, he ali io, he kumakani io. So the wind that kicks dirt, it hurts, but I know. So where it's coming from and where it goes, and it must blow. Well, kamakani, won't you blow? So we got to let them know. So if anybody speaks to my father, can you tell him I'm doing the best I can? Each day I'm working harder and harder. I know one day he would be proud of these hands. If anybody sees my mama, can you tell her she raised a good man? She taught me knowledge and wisdom and power, and how to solve problems no one else has. And I know that it makes sure my brothers know to stay righteous, diligent, and bold, yes. And I know that it makes sure my sisters know that their love is worth twice their weight in gold. Oheme na no e kulai, he ali io, he kumakani io. So the wind that kicks dirt, it hurts, but I know. So the where it's coming from and where it goes, and it must blow. Well, kamakani, won't you blow? ku i ke keiki. He ho'i mai koe o papa. A e kena ku i kena keiki. E malama o e a mama. Ia ku i ke keiki. He ho'i mai koe o papa. Ha e kena aku i kena keiki. E malama o e a mama. The next melee I think you guys are pretty familiar with. Talking about just taking a good idea, feeding our people, and putting a positive spin on it, and making sure that there's a positive message in everything that we do. We can take something simple, we can take something harsh, we can make it something bright and beautiful and happy. So this is my last melody to you. Mahalo nui again to all you guys for all your hard work. And let's celebrate. Ho'oma kau wika ai, ho'oma kau wika pa'akai, ho'oma kau wika o. Smoke meat, not drugs. Huh. What's up, Palala? Well, you know I called ya. I'm looking for Kiave, but I know you get Kuava. We can throw on some chicken. I know you like the sausage hotter. We can run the ribs and brisket. Sure, whatever you wanna. No murder style. We strictly slaughter Hawaiian salt upon the counter for make that mean whippy cola. Got the show you sugar, ginger, garlic, chili, pepper, water. Cause the boys just came back with one big poo-ah, We knock them out till sunset and we're sparking it up at dawn. I hope you know my plans. We're smoking all day long. Oh, cousin. Well, oh, cousin, how much would you like me to choke on, I like see this bugger flow. Wipe down my hands, put down my tongue, cause we'll be smoking, yeah, smoking all day long. We smoking all day long, cause we'll be smoking, yeah, smoking all day long. We smoke ahi, we smoke Marlin, and we've been smoking all day since early in the morning. We smoke Palani, we smoke Menpachi, and you know where the coals are going straight to the hibachi. We smoke taco, we smoke aku. The Carlos steady waiting there with a papa and pohaku. Well, what you smoking? Ya know we got you. We smoke EO, not Batu. Mahalo nui again, and congratulations, ahui ho, and enjoy. Aloha.
Thank you again to everyone who has joined us today. That actually concludes our program today, and we're ending a little bit early, but we'd just like to thank you all for participating and experiencing our entertainment, our speakers, our panelists, and even the breakout session. So we just thank you, and we hope to see you next year. Mahalo.